Okay, welcome to session 3 in chapter 1. Now we're going to talk about a few more things that are important. And again, remember, and I've said this several times already, we're dealing with some very basic things, but we're introducing some new ideas like the zone of learning or the words that we talked about with purpose, truth, and change. And now we're going to talk about something that's really important called the 1/8 inch principle. And this is actually a really exciting exercise to do. So what I would like for you to do is on that sun on your page, I would like for you to take a couple of minutes and I would like for you to write down the goals that you had for your life, whether you achieved them or not. Might have been I wanted to be a nurse or a doctor, or I wanted to be a truck driver. You could list any of the things that you really have always wanted to do in your life, whether you accomplish them or not. And so if you need to pause this, that's fine, and then you can come back to it. So I'll keep going. All right, so now you've written all your goals down, whether you achieved them or not, on that sun, and now I'm going to tell you something that's actually really cool. Okay, so we have the Earth here, and then we have this really cool rocket. Now let's say that NASA scientists decided that what they wanted to do was they wanted to shoot this rocket to the sun. And that's really kind of cool. But the sun is, I think, the only star in our solar system, and I think it's the largest one that there is. And so you'd think that by looking at it outside, we've all seen the sun, that we could point to it and we could make it there because it's so big. Wow, here's a very interesting fact. If the engineers at NASA, if they are off on their trajectory or their calculations by 1/8 of an inch, and that's about the thickness of a piece of chewing gum. If they are off by 1/8 of an inch, how much do you think, or how far away do you think that they will be when they actually arrive at the sun? Any ideas? 50,000 miles, maybe they won't miss it at all. Could be a number of things. Actually, they will miss the sun by 440,000 miles. Now that's massive. So here on Earth, we have this really small mistake, very small miscalculation. It's not very big, you can't even really notice it. It's the thickness of a piece of chewing gum. But by the time they get to the sun, they have gone off course enough to where it's 440,000 miles away from the actual goal. And that often is a reflection of our life. Because here's what happens. We make a decision at home and we say, oh, this isn't going to be a big deal. I should say yes to school or this relationship, but instead I said no. Or maybe I said no to a relationship that I should have said yes at. Or maybe I said no to school. It could be any number of things. And at the moment that we make that decision, usually nothing life-shattering happens. Usually the earth doesn't, have a major earthquake. People don't just like implode in front of us. We're still alive. Everybody around us is still alive. And yet, what happens? Usually, it's over time. Just like this rocket going to the sun, it doesn't happen instantaneously. They didn't say, okay, shoot the rocket, bam, you're there. Oh, you missed it. That's not what happened. Over a period of time, the more time that elapses between the time you make this decision and the time you think you should be achieving that goal, you're actually moving further away from it. And so that's why when we make impulsive decisions, we may not get it immediately, the consequences of that decision, but maybe over a period of time, suddenly we look back and we realize, wow, you know what? I had an opportunity to go to school and I didn't do it. Or I was in school, I got hooked up with a bunch of people and we just partied and I flunked out of school, and guess what? It's 10 years later, I would have graduated 6 years ago. They have jobs, I don't. And look at my life right now. I made a really poor decision years ago. And so that's when we really notice it, is over time. Well, it's not, I didn't give you this exercise to discourage you, but it gives you a really clear picture of, wow, small decisions make huge impacts in our life. And again, we may not see it immediately, but we definitely see it over time. So when you look at the sun and you have these goals written down, if those are still your goals, if you're still wanting to do some of these things, I want you to circle them. Because the beautiful thing about the laws of nature, though this exercise may make you think that it's not very, very friendly, and nature has some very harsh consequences for us. Nature also works in our favor. And so as we are making adjustments, as we go through core purpose and say, you know what, I am going to change my thinking about what purpose is. I'm not disqualified. I am going to change my thinking, excuse me, about relationships. I am going to start changing my thinking about what the truth looks like. Then what we can actually do is we can make these course corrections by changing our thinking. It's literally that simple. And before you know it, you're back on track with that trajectory to achieve your goal. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, you're going to fill this page and the next page out. Am I really ready for change? Oftentimes, people think that they're ready for change, but they're not. They like the idea of changing, but they're not really ready for change. They're like, oh, it feels nice. Oh, one of these days, you know what I'm going to do? And one of these days, I'm going to do this when everybody else does what they're supposed to do. Well, that's an indicator that you're really not ready for change. But the idea that you're acknowledging it means that you're on the path of change. So don't lose heart with that. So you'll complete these next few pages. And then I'd like for you to go over this. And I want you to be looking at this, and it's something to think about. You know, what are some issues in my life that may be preventing me from living out my purpose? And it's really okay to say, well, I have this relationship, or I have this job, or I have this fear, I have, some bad life experiences, I have a bit of trauma. So write it all down, because this is where you're just really being cathartic and honest about it, to get it off your chest. Write it down so that we can take a look at this later on. Now, this exercise is called Where Am I? And this is a very interesting exercise, because it is going to give us a viewpoint that's not just our viewpoint, but it's a different perspective on somebody else's viewpoint as well. And you will use this in addition to the next page called Your Feelings Word List. Now, let me explain the feelings word list before you access it. The reason why we've provided you with a feelings word list is the reality of it is, if somebody's under stress, they're not able to always articulate exactly how they're feeling. And an example of this is, I was talking with a girl when I was teaching this, and I said, okay, well, so how do you really feel? And she goes, I feel really bad. And I said, okay, well, I want you to think about that for a minute, and then, just really kind of ruminate it, and then answer the question again, how do you feel? And she goes, okay. So she thought for a minute, and she goes, I feel really bad. And I said, all right, let me ask you again. I want you to think about this, and can you, in maybe different words, describe how you're actually feeling about this situation? And she said, let me think about it. You're right. I really need to think about this. And she thought and thought and thought. And she goes, you know what? I feel really, really bad. And so what that is a very good example of is, sometimes we don't articulate very well exactly what's going on inside of us. And it's important for us to be able to communicate that. But stress does that to people. It blocks part of our brain, it shuts it down, and we just end up on one very focused path that we can't seem to break out of. And so we provide these words for you to help you to describe some of these feelings, and you'll be using this later on in the next chapter. Okay, so back to where am I? So what I want you to do is spend some time writing down, what are some of the obstacles and challenges that you've had in your life. It could be job, it could be economics, it could be utilities, it could be transportation, it could be housing, it could be unhealthy relationships, it could be depression and sorrow, it could be an eating disorder, it could be any number of things that kind of depress you. And so what I want you to do is take some time, and again, if you need to pause this, you can. I'll continue to teach it, so you'll be able to come right back in where you left off. But write everything down on what are these challenges are, okay? Okay, now on the help column where I seek help, what I want you to do is write down where you go to get help. It may be family, it may be your church, it could be a charity, it could be social services, it could be your friends, it could be a counselor, it could be a pastor, it could be anybody at all. And so take some time again and write down under this column where you actually get help. And when you're finished, go ahead and restart this video. Okay, so here's what I want you to look at, okay? You have challenges and obstacles, and they're real, very real, and you go to these people. Now, if you go to these people, well, first of all, before we enter that, I'm going to go back to this. So you have these challenges. Now I want you to go to your feelings word list, and I want you to write down all around these problems that you've had, and they might be habitual problems. They just seem to reoccur over and over and over again. An unhealthy relationship. You go from one relationship and you feel victimized. You end up going into another relationship feeling victimized, or you get a job and you feel betrayed. You feel people don't care about you, and you thought that they were going to care about you. And so I want you to spend some time and take your feelings word list and write all the words around the obstacles and challenges, how it makes you feel inside. Lost, invisible, betrayed, angry, hurt, frustrated, hopeless, lonely. You can write all these feelings down there. And then when you're finished with that, let's talk about the second column. Okay, so where I seek help. Now, what do you think happens to the people who might even be professionally trained to help you if you come to them with the same problems month after month after month? So you go to your family and you say, guess what? I just had this bad relationship, or guess what? I just had this problem at work, or guess what? I just had this problem with my car again, or guess what? I'm having this problem with whatever. And you're going to go to this same person over and over and say, I need money, I need reassurance, I need comfort, I need you to provide a solution for me because I can't provide a solution, so would you please make a solution happen for me? And you go to these people every month repeatedly, over and over and over again. Then go back to your feelings word list, and I want you to extract words from that feelings word list, just like you did for you on the obstacle and challenge column. I want you to apply those feelings, what they might be feeling when they see you coming over and over again and not making any headway, or not being able to sustain your progress. And take a few minutes and write that. Okay, because here's what I want you to see with this. When we are in a situation where we're always needing help and we kind of need rescuing, really, and that's okay in some respects, because we're gonna develop that more in the next chapter. What ends up happening is that you end up going to these people, and the same frustrations that you feel and the same anxiety that you feel in your life, the people who are actually trained to help you overcome these end up feeling the very same way. And so the thing I want you to learn from this is it possible that the people I'm going for help, getting help from, could it be that they're in the same place that I am in terms of actually solving my problem? Is it possible? And are we both feeling the same pressures now and the same emotions? And so is that possibly the reason why I can't break out of that? And that's actually a really huge epiphany to have, because we're not criticizing the people who really want to help you. But we're going to talk in chapter 2 about the two models that people normally work from. And oftentimes people who want to actually bring help are working from the same model that you're working from. And because of that, nothing gets solved. Okay? And so spend some time reflecting on this. Don't be frustrated with the people who haven't really helped you out of your quandary. Be sympathetic for them and realize, wow, I think we're both working from the same model. And maybe if I learn something from this, which you will, maybe I can bring some help for them so that they can break out of that as well as I can. Okay? All right, so spend some time reflecting on this. We've gone through a few minutes going over these things, and then I'll catch you at the next at our next session. Okay.